The room felt ordinary at first, a typical cafe buzzing with the quiet energy of midday. Cups clinked, laptops clicked, and conversations floated around like gentle background music. People were immersed in their own worlds, lost in the comfort of routine, scrolling phones, chatting softly, sipping coffee, or exchanging brief smiles. Everything seemed normal, even safe, as if the walls of the cafe offered a bubble free from tension. Yet beneath the surface, a subtle undercurrent lingered, waiting for the smallest provocation to reveal it. That provocation came as a sentence, uttered casually, almost innocently, yet loaded with the weight of hidden bias. The words hung in the air before anyone could react. At first, they seemed like nothing, a fragment of idle conversation, easily ignored if one chose to. But the sentence carried meaning that went beyond its simplicity, revealing prejudice that had been quietly masked by the everyday routine. Heads turned, eyes widened, and silence began to creep across the room, settling uncomfortably among the patrons. Some froze mid-gesture, unsure whether to confront or pretend they hadn't heard. In that instant, the ordinary became extraordinary, showing that racism often appears in subtle, quiet ways rather than loud outbursts. The woman at the counter felt her chest tighten as the words reached her ears. Her hand trembled slightly as she poured cream into her coffee, a small, involuntary response to the discomfort she felt. Her eyes met those of the man who had spoken, briefly searching for any hint that she had imagined it. But the smirk on his face left no doubt. The remark was intentional, aimed to belittle. Around the cafe, the atmosphere shifted, subtle but palpable, as bystanders registered the moment with uneasy awareness. It was a silent acknowledgment of the fragility of civility and the power of words to wound quietly. Some people looked away, hoping the moment would pass unnoticed. Others shifted in their seats, uncomfortable and unsure of what action, if any, to take. A teenager paused mid-scroll on his phone, sensing the sudden tension. A couple in the corner exchanged worried glances, their smiles disappearing. The room seemed to contract, compressing under the weight of the unsaid. No one wanted to escalate the situation, yet ignoring it felt equally impossible. Amid the unease, a spark appeared, a man sitting alone at a nearby table, observing everything. His attention was drawn to the discomfort radiating from the woman and the subtle arrogance in the instigator's expression. I felt empathy combined with a sense of moral responsibility stirring within him. He knew he could not let the moment pass unchallenged, but hesitation briefly held him back. How could he intervene without making the situation worse? The decision weighed heavily, yet he understood that courage often begins quietly with observation and awareness. The tension continued to build, rippling through the cafe in invisible waves. Patrons shifted, adjusting cups and papers, feeling the atmosphere tighten. The silence amplified each heartbeat, each subtle glance exchanged. The words once spoken lingered like smoke, twisting through the space, forcing reflection whether anyone wanted it or not. The instigator leaned back smugly, unaware or uncaring of the disruption he caused. But the man observing could not ignore the injustice, and a choice began to form in his mind. Finally, he stood, his movement deliberate, calm, and confident, capturing the attention of everyone present. The cafe seemed to pause as if holding its breath, awaiting the first ripple of change. His gaze met the young woman's briefly, a silent reassurance passing between them. Relief flickered in her eyes, the first indication that someone might act with integrity rather than aggression. The man approached the instigator steadily, not hurried, not confrontational. There was clarity in his stance, a quiet authority born of empathy. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm yet audible to the cafe around him. "I think what you just said might have crossed a line." There was no anger, no accusation, just a firm acknowledgement of wrongdoing. The instigator blinked, clearly caught off guard, unprepared for this unexpected confrontation. The young woman's eyes filled with gratitude, tears forming at the edge, not from fear, but from relief. The room, previously tense, now leaned into the possibility of change. "Words have a power that gestures cannot always convey," the man continued, explaining gently. "Sometimes we don't realize the weight our words carry. But remarks like that can wound deeply, leaving marks invisible to the eye." He spoke not to shame, but to enlighten, offering an opportunity to rise above the instinct for defense or ridicule. The instigator's smirk faltered, replaced by uncertainty and reflection. Around them, the patrons leaned forward, curiosity and hope mingling in their expressions. The young woman exhaled softly, feeling a sense of protection she had not expected. The instigator's posture softened gradually. He muttered hesitantly, I didn't mean it like that." His words, unsure yet meaningful, acknowledged the impact of his remark. Silence fell, not oppressive, but expectant, as if the café itself was waiting for the next moment of insight. Bystanders subtly shifted, nodding, exchanging glances, recognizing that courage could indeed ripple outward. Even small acts of empathy became visible, a collective understanding forming quietly among the patrons. One moment, one choice had begun to transform the ordinary environment. The young woman, previously tense, felt relief wash over her. Her hands relaxed, and she allowed herself a quiet smile, acknowledging the support silently. Around her, the café's energy began to shift, lighter, warmer, as empathy replaced tension. The ripple effect of one act of courage became clear. Smiles returned. Nods were exchanged, and subtle gestures of kindness emerged. Patrons seemed more aware, more human, in a space that had moments ago felt constrained by prejudice. The man who intervened returned to his seat, calm and unobtrusive, knowing he had made a difference. The instigator remained, his posture softened, his demeanor quieter. His apology, awkward yet sincere, was a small acknowledgment of the lesson he had received. The young woman nodded, accepting the gesture, not just for herself, but for the larger lesson unfolding in the room. Other patrons engaged in small, meaningful acts, offering smiles, holding doors, exchanging quiet words. The ordinary café, once a simple backdrop, had become a stage for the extraordinary potential of humanity. The atmosphere, once stifling, now carried the energy of transformation and reflection. Act 4 marked the transformation of fear into hope. Patrons whispered reflections, their voices tinged with newfound awareness. The man who intervened quietly observed the small changes, recognizing that courage often travels silently, spreading subtly but powerfully. Conversations became more thoughtful, glances more compassionate, and collective behavior gentler. 8. The ripple of one action continued outward, unseen but deeply felt. Even the instigator, previously unaware of his impact, had begun to absorb the lesson of accountability and empathy. The young woman approached the man later, her voice soft yet sincere. "Thank you," she said, gratitude evident in every syllable. He responded with a gentle nod, affirming that small actions can indeed restore faith. Patrons continued their routines, but with a sense of reflection and renewed awareness. The ordinary café had witnessed an extraordinary human interaction, a moment that would linger in memory. Each observer carried the subtle lesson forward, changed by the example of one person choosing to act rightly. The instigator's internal shift was quiet but significant. He reflected on the words spoken, the calm confrontation that had not humiliated but enlightened him. The possibility for change had been introduced, an alternative to complacency or aggression. The young woman felt empowered, her previous fear transformed into relief and hope. Patrons felt inspired, subtly influenced by the demonstration of empathy and courage. The café, once ordinary, now held a sense of restored humanity. In Act 5, the focus shifted to closure and reflection. The young woman left the café with lighter steps. Carrying more than her belongings, she carried hope renewed. The man who intervened returned to his quiet corner, content in the knowledge that a single act could ripple beyond the immediate moment. The instigator lingered in reflection, aware now of the impact of careless words. Other patrons, touched by the events, silently acknowledged that kindness and courage mattered. Ordinary life resumed, yet the extraordinary had occurred within the walls of that café. The story remained a quiet testament to humanity's potential for goodness. Moments like these, rare yet profound, remind us of the power inherent in each choice we make. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes whispers, deliberate and patient. A single act, one voice, one intervention, can restore faith in ways words alone often cannot. Prejudice may persist, yet empathy and integrity offer counterbalance. Ordinary spaces can host extraordinary lessons if we choose to notice and act. Humanity, fragile yet resilient, shines brightest when confronted with the challenge of injustice. As the city continued its endless rhythm outside, the story lingered within the café. It lingered in glances exchanged, in smiles offered, in silent acknowledgment of human connection. Actions and choices mattered, creating waves that could reach far beyond immediate perception. The story demonstrated that empathy and courage, even in small doses, could disrupt cycles of prejudice. It reminded everyone present that they had the power to act, to influence, and to uplift. And in that simple truth lay the profound hope of restoration. Faith in humanity, though fragile, is never truly lost. One moment of courage can reawaken belief in decency, compassion, and connection. Ordinary life continues, yet extraordinary possibilities exist within everyday decisions. The narrative shows that prejudice need not define interactions when intervention is possible. Humanity can rise above, choosing integrity over indifference. This is the story of a single act of courage, quietly transforming lives and leaving a lasting imprint.